Hi, my name is Macaulay, and today we're going to be talking about how to hack-proof your password. So let's talk about passwords. According to a recent survey, 53% of people rely solely on memory to remember their passwords. 51% of people reuse the same passwords for work and for personal accounts. And lastly, 23 million accounts use the password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's talk about what puts your passwords and accounts at risk. So first of all, data breaches. Even really strong passwords can be compromised when a company or organization is a victim of a data breach. Using weak or easily guessed passwords like your pet's name 12345. Because even if you have a really strong password, if one of your accounts is breached, that person now has access to all other accounts that use that password. Oversharing online, especially if your password has something to do with a pet or grandchild and you post openly about those things online. So how do hackers steal passwords? Now, the simplest way for a hacker to steal your password is just to guess it, especially if it has any of those really common elements that I mentioned previously. Another way hackers might get your password is through a data breach. So they hack the server of a company that you hold an account with and get your password that way. Now, if a company or organization has had a data breach, the hacker may not be the person who ends up using the password. Often they'll post the logins on the dark web and someone else will buy them. A hacker may be able to steal your password if you download malware that they've created. Tech support scams are also another way passwords can be stolen. We talk about this in another video, so check that out. But in this case, you think you're talking to someone in tech support, you give them their password trusting that they won't do anything bad with it, and they use it to hack your account. Taking advantage of outdated software can also be a way passwords get stolen. If you're not updating your computer or phone or tablet regularly, you leave room for gaps in your security system, which make it easier for hackers to gain access to your devices. Phishing attacks can be another way that people get passwords. A common one hackers use to get passwords is a password reset phishing scam. So they send you an email saying that you need to reset your password, and they provide a link to reset your password at. You open the link, it takes you to a website that looks legitimate. It asks you to enter in your old password as well as your new password, and they use the password you entered to hack your account. Okay, so what are some warning signs that your password may have been compromised or stolen? So one is that your usual password isn't working. This may indicate that someone had changed it or tried to change it and got locked out. If this happens, you want to contact the company you hold the account with immediately to let them know. You are notified that your password has changed. So you may get an email saying your password has changed, but you didn't change it. That's another red flag. Again, you can contact the company immediately. You see changes you didn't make. So you go on your account, your profile picture has been changed or your bio has been changed, and you didn't make those changes. You are told by a company that they suffered a data breach. So sometimes companies do suffer data breaches and user logins do get stolen. They should let you know when this happens, and when they do, you really need to go and change your password immediately for that account, and of course any accounts that may have the same password. Friends or family are receiving odd messages that are from you, so from your email or from one of your social media accounts. So someone else has gained access and is messaging people in your social circle. You get a message demanding a ransom to get the account back. Sometimes people will hijack accounts in order to get money from you. So whether that's a Facebook account, a Gmail account, anything like that, sometimes the end goal is just to steal the account, get some money, and then release it. And lastly, one other sign that may come up is that your computer or phone seems slower. Now, we all experience our computers lagging over time, but a sudden slowdown can be a sign that your device has been infected with password-stealing malware, or someone has gotten access and has done something to your device. So watch out for that one as well. So what are the consequences of password theft? So first of all, financial losses. If someone steals a password to an account you hold in which you have financial information stored, they can then use that information to make purchases on your account or steal your bank information and withdraw funds. So this could obviously be your banking account, but also any sort of account you have to make online purchases, like Amazon or Etsy. A stolen password could also mean damage to your reputation, especially if a password for some sort of communication account has been stolen, say your email or Facebook or Instagram account. Hackers may get into your account and start using your account to prey on people in your social circle. And lastly, password theft can lead to identity theft. If a hacker is able to gain access to, say, your bank account, they can open up new accounts under your name. So now that we know all the risks of password theft, let's talk about how you can create a strong password. So it's important to remember that passwords are always your first line of defense for any account you have online. So you want to make sure you're setting yourself up for success. So when it comes to setting a strong password, there are really just two rules. Make it long and make it complicated. If your password is something easily guessable, like your pet's name 123, or like in this example, Skippy123, that's probably not a great password. Instead, you can make a longer password. But making longer passwords can make them also more difficult to remember. So if this is an issue you have, you can always use a technique of writing out a really long sentence. So in this case, I wrote, "I like mint ice cream on a cold day." Now, this is actually a decent password because it's long and sort of random, right? But we can make this password even stronger by adding in other elements to it. So I again wrote out, "I like mint ice cream on a cold day," but I switched out the I's for exclamation marks, I made all the A's capital, and I switched out the O's for zeros. So this password is still relatively easy for me to memorize, but difficult for a hacker to guess. Okay, but let's get into more depth of the do's of creating a strong password. So first of all, make it unique. The more random or weird, the better. Make it long. Write out a sentence, or if you have a favorite quote, use the first letter of every word in that quote. Always use a mix of characters, cases, symbols, and numbers. Now, this isn't the worst offender, but try to avoid common substitutions, especially if you're not making your password otherwise particularly unique. So substituting E for the number 3, for example. Don't follow easy keyboard paths, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And lastly, consider using a passphrase. So like I said before, writing out a longer sentence rather than just using a password, which implies a shorter phrase. All right, now let's talk about the don'ts of creating a strong password. So you could create the strongest password in the world, but it doesn't really protect you so well if you are reusing it for all of your accounts, or otherwise using similar variations of that password. Now, this is because if a company, like I said, does suffer a data breach and someone steals your password, if you have been using that password for other accounts, they will then be able to log into those other accounts, even if they haven't been breached. Don't use an obvious password like your date of birth, your pet's name, your kid's name. Any information about you that can be easily found online is not a good idea to put in your password. Don't use common keyboard sequences like QWERTY. Don't write your passwords down on a piece of paper and then keep it out and about. Don't store them in your web browser when they ask you if you want to save your password. And do not rely on the memory technique. It is going to be hard to remember your passwords, and if you do that, you are unlikely to be able to create unique passwords for all of your accounts. Now, as I already said, you don't only want to rely on the memory technique for your passwords, but maybe there's a password here and there that you want to memorize. So how can you make a password that's memorable? Combine random, not easily guessed words that are meaningful to you. Use memorable, long passphrases instead of complicated passwords. Create passwords out of abbreviated song lyrics or quotes from your favorite song or book. You can also create passphrases with words from different languages. So if you are multilingual, use that to your advantage. It's going to make it much harder for someone to guess that. But the best thing you can do for your passwords is to use a password manager. All right, so last thing I said was use a password manager, but what is a password manager? Simply put, a password manager is a program that stores and manages your passwords for online accounts. With a password manager, you store all of your passwords in one place, and you only use one master password to access them. These accounts are encrypted and incredibly secure, and rarely, if ever, suffer data breaches. So rather than memorizing 15 really strong passwords, you can just create one super strong password to store the rest of your passwords. So let's take a look at how a password manager works. All right, a quick recap on using a password manager. So when choosing a password manager, look for one that's compatible with all your devices. If you have a computer and a phone, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to use the program on both devices so you can access your passwords regardless of what device you're on. Once you've chosen a password manager, set up a really strong master password. And then thereafter, always use your password manager. When you sign up for a new account, when you change your password, make sure that you're creating those complicated passwords, saving it to the password manager, and keeping it all secure and safe within that account. All right, so we just reviewed how to use a password manager, and that is really the best way you can safely store your password. But here are some other ways to safely store your passwords. You can write down your passwords, but keep them in a notebook and make sure that that notebook is somewhere safe and somewhere that others won't have easy access to. And most importantly, somewhere where you won't forget where it is. You actually can use a note or spreadsheet on your devices, but password protect it and encrypt it. This is a decent way to store your passwords, but for most of us, it's probably just going to be easier to use a password manager. All right, if you have any more questions about this topic, you can always call Cyber Seniors toll free at 844-217-3057 or visit us online at cyberseniors.org.